you have all these like opinions and like all these like tips and tricks that work like really well on your child, like and none of it's going to apply to the second one. You have to get a whole new set of tips and tricks to interact with like no two kids are the same, right? Like maybe I've taken for advantage that my son is a great eater. You give him food, he will always eat. And there's other like kids that like just like will not eat anything, right? And you have to like force it down them. So yeah, I'm trying to prepare myself. I'm like, what if I not realized that I got to skip over with the first kid? And what am I going to get to skip over that I didn't with my first kid, right?
Welcome to Startup Dad, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of dads who are also leaders in the world of startups and business. I'm your host, Adam Fishman. One question I get asked an awful lot is how to prepare for the arrival of a second kid. There is no better way to find out than by asking a startup dad who is a few days away from that exact event. Today's guest is Brian Holt. He's a staff product manager at Neon, a venture-backed startup building serverless PostgreSQL technology in the cloud. He has been a VP of product and product leader at companies like SQLite Cloud, Snowflake, Stripe, and Microsoft, and an engineer at companies like Netflix and Reddit, where he was one of the earliest employees. He's also a husband and the father of a son, and soon-to-arrive daughter. By the time you listen to this, he'll be a tired dad of two. In our conversation today, we spoke about how to prepare for the arrival of your second kid, balancing work, side hustles, social life, exercise, and being a good parent and husband, and whether or not he'd recommend living a nomadic lifestyle with a toddler, something he tried for about 6 months this last year. We also talked about his love of the snoo, and I learned about the magic of magnetic snap baby clothes. I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Brian Holt. I would like to welcome Brian Holt to the Startup Dad podcast. Brian, it's incredible to have you here today. I can't wait for this conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, I found you on one of the corners of the internet, buried deep in a Twitter thread about amazing dads. But before we go into you being an amazing dad, and by the way, this was other people tagging you. So at least one other person out there thinks you're an amazing dad. So
That's cool.
Tell me a little bit about your professional background.
I've worked in tech for a long time. I started out with some smaller companies in Salt Lake. I ended up at Reddit. I was employee number 29 at Reddit, which was a rocket ship unto itself. Very exciting. I ended up at Netflix. All this time I was more of like an engineer. At some point, I ended up at Microsoft as doing DevRel, and then decided DevRel life wasn't for me, so I transitioned more into the product management chain, which is where I am now. I was PM at Microsoft, Stripe, Snowflake, another little startup. I was the VP of product. And then now I'm a staff PM working on AI and backend services at Neon, which is a database as a service kind of company.
Wow. What a journey.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah. And I imagine working at Microsoft was fairly different than working at Reddit, for example.
Yeah, you can say some things at Microsoft and not at Reddit and vice versa, right?
That's awesome. Where did you grow up and what were you like as a kid?
That's a good question. I was born in Helena, Montana, which I imagine most of your guests are probably not from Montana. I was the youngest of 4. And then I ended up moving to Salt Lake. For the most part, most of my childhood took place in Salt Lake. And what kind of kid was I? I was the 4th and youngest child, so I fit many of those stereotypes. I was a negotiator. I never took to my first no. I always had to talk to my parents. And to my parents' credit, if I negotiated pretty well, okay, Brian, you can do that. And they would, trade with me in that particular way. And I think that, made well for me as an adult. But yeah, I was always trying to finagle my way out of trouble. I was always getting into trouble and trying to finagle my way out of trouble.
Okay. So I would say 2 things about that. One is those negotiation skills probably came in real handy as a product manager.
Absolutely.
That's all you do all day is negotiate with people.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. And then 2 is, what is a thing that you remember negotiating with your parents about? Because I'm wondering what the future is going to look like for you when your kids start negotiating with you.
Oh, my son has already started. This is like, oh my God, you are a small me doing exactly what I did to my parents. What did I negotiate with my parents with? Like, I remember I really wanted to go to my friend's house when I was in Helena, and I was grounded for something or another. And I basically convinced my parents that if they let me go to my friend's house, that I would come back and like do more chores than I was expected to do, and that I could shift my punishment from being grounded to more chores. So my parents were like, well, okay, yeah, we can, horse trade that. So they said yes, and I went.
Is that a thing that you would do with your kids? Would you let them shift punishment?
I suppose. I mean, if my kid can convince me that he thought through this and he's thought through my perspective and he's offering me something equal in return, it's like, you know what, buddy, let's go for it. Let's try it.
All right. We'll make sure he doesn't listen to this when he's older.
Yeah.
So one more question about your childhood. As a fourth child, do you ever remember being left anywhere where people just forgot about you? Like Macaulay Culkin style in Home Alone.
It did happen a couple of times. It happened at Disneyland. Eventually, like I found an employee who found my parents. But the one that's probably actually funnier is I was at soccer practice, and my parents were supposed to be the ones that picked up me and my friend from soccer practice. And they had something for my sister. They had something for my other brother. And my friend and I were just playing on the soccer field after everyone had left for probably like 90 minutes before we realized, like, oh shit, there's nobody here. That is now dark and we cannot walk home. So eventually I did like the thing where you call collect and you like say, hi, it's your son, come pick me up. For your younger listeners, they probably don't even know like what collect calling was, but we didn't have a cell phone, so that's what we had to do. And then eventually I was like all freaking out. I was like, are you okay? I was like, no, it's fine. We just got to hang out for an extra 90 minutes. But
yeah. And I love that you're just playing soccer the whole time and not until 90 minutes goes by are you like, oh, actually the sun has set. I was supposed to be picked up a while.
Yeah,
that's a fourth kid. Love that story. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your family now. You have a partner and you have one son and another one on the way, which we'll get to in a second. But tell me about your family now.
Yeah, so I married my wife, Nikki, how many years ago? It'll be 13 years ago this year. We got married somewhat young, as is Utah tradition. And we met in college. We were neighbors, and we didn't have kids right away because we weren't really sure that we wanted to have kids. And we wanted to travel. And so in my 20s and early 30s, we went to some 40, 50 countries, did a ton of traveling, kind of crossed off like a lot of the bucket list stuff and, established careers and did a bunch of stuff like that. And so it was I don't know if I'm going to recommend my plan that everyone should do it this way, but it worked really well for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, that's a lot of traveling. I'm somewhat jealous, but also sounds very tiring to me. What would your advice be to people about something like that? If they're like, oh, I've got the travel bug, but want to start this family. Like if you were to do that over again, would you do it in the exact same way or make some changes?
Certainly mixed feelings. I could certainly trade off here. What was amazing is like Nikki and I were able to do like, I don't know, 2 months on the road, and it just wasn't that big of a deal because we had a dog, and that was like the hardest thing was like making sure that the dog got taken care of. And like no regrets in terms of like I've had some just phenomenal experiences in, many different places across the world. And so a lot of this came through Microsoft and doing DevRel, that I was speaking at all these conferences and meeting all sorts of interesting people. And a lot of my closest friends live abroad now. I do see the flip side of this, where I look at some of my friends that had kids younger and like they have older kids now. Like I'm going to be an old dad or older dad, right? And like that's a trade-off, right? I'm not going to tell you one's better than the other. I don't regret what I did. I think it was right for me and my wife, but I certainly see the merits of doing it the other way.
Yeah. And so you have a 3.5-ish-year-old, and then you have another kid that is due in just a couple of days. Is that right?
Like 4 days. Like my wife is scheduled to be induced. So my wife's waters could literally break right now and we could end this podcast, right? So if that happened, that's what happens.
That would be a first, but also not surprising. So you've got this 3.5-year-old, a son, right?
Yep.
And, you've done a lot while you've had him. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I'm curious how you've been preparing him, yourself, the whole family for the arrival of another kid that's coming any day now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm doing enough, which is always, I think, probably an evergreen thought of every father is like, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? We try and like remind him constantly that, mommy is carrying a baby, that the baby's going to come soon, that all of a sudden you're going to have like, divided attention because he's an only child so far. He has had 100% of two parents' attention, plus all the people around him that love him, right? And he's a mama's boy. He loves his mom. So I think that's going to be super difficult for him that like, he's not going to be able to go to bed with mommy most nights. He's not going to be able to have her attention. He's going to get more daddy's attention, which like, daddy's attention is cool, but it's not mommy attention, right? There's a pecking order here and I know where I stand, right? It's like mom and then me and the dog are about even, right? Which is fine, right? I accept that. So we're just trying to piece by piece, reinforce this is what's happening. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And so he understands somewhat that like a baby is about to be, he understands what a baby is, that it's going to be here. We've had him like be around other kids, like you have to be soft with them. And then just recognizing that all of our planning is going to go to total shit and it's all going to happen all at once. And we're just going to panic and deal with it. Right. Which is just our MO at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you have like the crib all set up and like the go bag ready and everything? Or are you winging it like second time kid?
All the above. I mean, my go bag is back there. It's mostly packed. Like there's a bunch of stuff I realized that is like, oh shit, the car seat has to do the second car seat has to go in the car. So we went and did that. We finally got like all the cameras set up for all the various different rooms of like, so we can have one that watches the older kid, one that watches the younger kid. We got the snoo. We bought a snoo, like the stupid bassinet that everyone unfortunately is worth it. So we got that back from my cousin who I lent it out to because it's stupid expensive. Right?
Oh yeah.
And got that all set up. Took some lessons this time. It was like, here's stuff that we definitely don't need. So we like stuff we didn't rebuy a bunch of stuff. We bought other stuff like, man, we wish we would have had more of these. Like, I don't say every, but many families end up having way too much clothes because everyone gives them clothes. Yeah. And I realized that the magnetic clothes are so much better. So I ended up just buying a bunch of stuff like stuff like that, right? Like, I am an idiot, but sometimes I do learn things and do better the second time.
Did you say magnetic clothes?
Yeah, so it's like instead of having like buttons or zippers on the front, you just like throw them together and like the magnets all stick together. It's
whoa,
phenomenal. It's the best way to change a kid.
I don't know that this existed when my kids were babies. Maybe it did, but I have now. Well, I have a niece who's 1, and now I feel like I know what she's getting for the next like 5 years of her life.
Yeah, Magnetic Me is the brand that we buy.
Oh, that sounds like such a handy thing, because who wants to be like fumbling with snaps and buttons when you're sleep deprived and it's like 3 a.m. and dark?
You got it. That's exactly what I want.
You also mentioned the snoo, which one, I'm glad you got it back because it is very expensive.
Yeah.
And 2, the snoo is probably, it's very polarizing. Like it is, I would say it's probably in the top 1 or 2 of most recommended products on this podcast. But then there's also people who are like, it didn't work for me at all. And the thing that did work was like putting them in a cardboard box, which cost 50 cents.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that it worked for you because that's an expensive thing to find out doesn't work.
The snoo got lent out to several people that I know. And there's one person who's like, my kid actually actively disliked it and we couldn't use it at all. My son doesn't like to go to sleep still to this day. He just doesn't like going to sleep, but he sleeps amazing once he's asleep. Our last house was next to a motorcycle bar, so it was just always motorcycles, super loud at all times. So you can sleep through anything. You can literally walk up and have a conversation right next to him. He doesn't care. But the snoo was great. It's like it felt like cheat codes. Like we would like put him down, and like within like a week, he would sleep through the whole night. Like we'd have to actually wake him for feedings and stuff like that. So that's why I say, like, unfortunately, it was worth it. Don't get me wrong, getting him off of it at like the 6-month mark is a test unto itself.
Yeah,
but I'm separating my problems out. That is a can I'm willing to kick down the road. And like, 6 months, Brian, fuck that guy. I don't care about him. Today's Brian needs some more sleep.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And now, is the snoo something that you planned for in advance? You're like, we're getting the snoo. We've heard a lot about this. Or was this like, kids not sleeping, it's 2 a.m., I'm making a panic purchase, and it's like surge pricing for snooze online?
It was at the time. I got some good advice. In particular, one of my good buddies, Scott Moss, who recently had a kid at the time as well. He sent me just like a whole list of like, here's everything. And he's like, don't ask any questions, just buy everything on the list. And I would say almost everything on that list was just like, yeah, okay, ended up working out. And so the snoo was on there. And I was like, you know what? At the chance I might get more sleep, yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Awesome. Well, as I said, I'm super glad that worked out for you.
Yeah.
So you recently moved from where you were living in Seattle to kind of down the road from me in Sacramento. And you did this with a toddler.
Yep.
Which is terrifying to me. I don't even
Yep.
have a toddler anymore, and I get like anxiety thinking about this. And you also you described it to me as kind of homeless for like 5 months, like bopping around to different places. So tell me about that, the experience of moving with a toddler and also being a bit of a nomad.
Yep. So we lived in Seattle for 6 years. I loved it. It's a beautiful place, lovely people, a lot of good friends. But we got off the trip from Mexico so my wife could get some more sun. My wife is from Southern California, so sun is very important to her. And I was thinking it was like charging her batteries that we could get back into the Seattle gloom and she would be fine. And we got off the plane and she looked at me and she's like, I can't do this anymore. Get me out of here. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, if, what's the point of, living any of these places if you're unhappy with it? So we kind of kicked off a little search of figuring out where to live. Back to Salt Lake was an option. Denver was high on the list. We looked at San Diego. We looked at going back to like East Base, like Orinda, Moraga kind of area, and like Park City, Utah, and some other stuff like that. We landed on Sac just because access to the Bay Area, access to Tahoe. I'm a big snowboarder, so that was high on my list. Good international airport, and then extremely sunny. It's like the 7th sunniest metro in the U.S. I actually found out for 4 months a year, it's literally the sunniest place on Earth. I found that out yesterday, which is a bit of a curse because during those summer months, it's extremely hot here and I am going to melt. Being from Montana, I'd much rather be way cold than way hot. And I just lost all of the arguments. I'll put it that way. So we decided that I went to my realtor, who is also my good friend, and said like, hey, this is kind of our plan. And he's like, you need to sell your house right now because you will get a way better price in the summer when Seattle's beautiful, people are looking for schools, all that kind of stuff, than you will in like the dread of winter where everything looks like it's terrible in Seattle. It's like the worst time to be in Seattle. So we did. We put the house on the market. We bought a new construction here, and the name of the city is Granite Bay, California. So like on the far eastern side, close to Lake Folsom. But it wasn't going to be ready until January. And so we had to be out of our house in August. We had to be in here in January. And at that point, could have been even February because it was new construction. You just don't know.
Wow.
And so like, well, what are we going to do? We explored a bunch of options, but we ended up deciding to spend 2 months in Minneapolis. I have a really good friend from Front of Masters that's out there, which is the platform that I teach like online courses for. So I stayed at his house for 2-ish months. Then we spent 1 month on Huntington Beach in California next to my wife's family. And then we spent like the next 6-ish weeks in Salt Lake City because I wanted to be close to the skiing and for all that kind of stuff because that was during winter. And it seems very sane. Like I have a pregnant wife. Let's go places where we have help. That was kind of the idea. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we would have just gone to like Spain or something like that, right? Something kind of fun. But like I was like, no, I am pregnant and I have a child. Please give me help. There's a theme here of me losing all of the arguments. It will continue throughout the podcast.
Despite the fact that you were such a shrewd negotiator as the fourth child, you have barely met your match.
Yeah, that's accurate. So on one hand, amazing to spend time with a bunch of people that like we love. On the flip side, it just sucks in being someone else's house for like 6 months, like to be a guest for that long. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I kind of realized, and very obvious in retrospect, but not obvious when I did all those things, is like kids thrive on routine, right? And doing the same things in the same order, in the same, like day after day after day. And like them having a clear expectation of where they're going to go, who they're going to deal with, all those kind of things. And when you keep moving them like that, they just don't, right? They're constantly in flux and ended up being pretty hard on him. And like, he's a strong, resilient kid, but it was just, I could tell it was frustrating for him. And it's like not his fault. It's our fault, right? And so if nothing else happens from this podcast, please don't do that. Just pick one spot. That was absolutely the right choice. You should just pick one spot, maybe get an Airbnb, maybe get like a short-term like business lease, as I think is what they call them.
Mhm.
But I would have just done that and picked like either like Minnesota or Utah and just been there the whole time.
Yeah. I was thinking that as you were saying that you bopped around to like several different places, the first thing that came to my mind is, oh man, that would have destroyed us because our kids thrived on knowing the routine. But
Yep.
not every kid is like that. There are some kids that are just like, I'm fine, go with the flow, even at that age. But it sounds like your kid is maybe more like a lot of other kids in that they like to know what am I doing today and where am I going and like, who are these people?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, he did pretty well. I don't think he had any behavior issues over it. Honestly, it was harder on us just because he would just get like tired and frustrated and like would have like a difficult bedtime and those kind of things.
Yeah. And at that age, they can't quite communicate super well what's going on inside their head.
Yeah, they just
and their
yell
bodies.
and they expect you to figure it out. Yeah.
Right. Right. So what are now 3.5 years in, about to have your second kid? What are some of the more surprising things that you've discovered as a dad?
Man, like one of the things is that if you find out, like, for example, your kid has like I don't know, an earache or something like that, there's like, if you Google like, my kid has an earache, you will find out that your kid immediately has cancer and also they're dying and also there's nothing wrong with them. And also you're wrong. And it's like, maybe you're an alcoholic. And like, you just like, you go down this list of like, oh my God, I just want to know what to do for my child with an earache. Right. So
Right.
I found out that the internet is actively unhelpful for raising children. And I say that as someone that's worked on 2 social networks. I understand. Don't use the internet anymore. It's incredibly frustrating with everything to do with parenting of, for whatever stance or opinion that you want to have, parenting or how to parent or anything like that, there is both a very strong and a very for against camp. Either way, you're killing your kid. You just don't know how you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Which then kind of loops down to backgrounds. The thing that surprises me is actually your intuition and instinct and, consulting with your doctor is the best way to raise a kid, right? Because you can always pick these like various different like methodologies or ways of thinking about parenting or, I like these sources of parenting, but like at the end of the day, you kind of have to like synthesize a lot of this into like your very unique and special case, which is your child. Like I found out very quickly is like, I am not an expert in parenting. I'm not an expert in kids. To be frank, like I was never a kids person, right? I was the youngest, right? I didn't have anyone to take care of growing up, but I am a specialist in specifically raising Reed Holt, the very narrow specialty that I exist in.
Yeah. Yeah. So would that be like, let's say you bumped into younger Brian from 4 years ago, So Reed is on the way. He's coming, but he's not here yet. And you saw your younger self. Is that some of the advice that you would dispense is like, ignore all the things on all the corners of the internet. You will feel terrible if you don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It was advice I was already giving to like young engineers that were entering the field is like, listen to everyone's advice and ignore most of it. It applies just in spades here. It's like, listen to everybody, like listen to your mother-in-law and your siblings and that weird person on Facebook, and then synthesize that down to like, everything you're telling me is either like wrong or steeped in survivorship bias, right? Like this worked for you, so therefore it must work for you, right? And then just like distill down like what you think you should do. And generally that's going to be a much better choice than trying to wholesale adopt other people's advice.
Yeah. I love that. That is fantastic advice for younger Brian.
Yep.
Is there anything in particular that you remember somebody dispensing at you or giving you advice-wise where you were like, oh, that is just a horrible piece of advice. I got to flush that one.
Man, like a lot of this, I'm trying to remember, like some of this is repressed memories. In fact, we should talk about repressed memories here in just a second of like me trying to revisit all of this stuff with my second child coming. But a lot of the terrible advice I got around was sleep training. Because like when we got my son off of the snoo and like just like trying to sleep in a crib. I don't know. It's not obvious how to get a kid to like sleep in their own crib and like be happy about it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I heard every bit of advice. One of them was just close the door, put in your headphones, and just to straight up ignore the child. I was like, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
That feels like borderline negligence. It's not even borderline. It feels like out and out negligence, right? So there was that camp, and like I'm sure that worked for some people. It would have been negligence on my part to do that to my son.
Yeah.
There's other people that like, you have to like, oh, I'm trying to remember exactly what this one person told me. Is like, you have to like be in the room and you have to be like under a blanket so that they can't see you, but they see you that you're in the room. And I'm like, what the shit is this? This makes no sense to me. And so I heard everything. And so one of them, eventually what someone told me is like, what's it called? Like graduated extinction. I think it's cry it out method is with like the less nice way of putting that one, which is like going every 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. Like that made some sense to me. And I'm sure we weren't doing our perfect, what are those numbers
The
are?
Fibonacci sequence or
Fibonacci's,
something?
thank you. I think that's what they recognize in Fibonacci. Like, I can't do Fibonacci in real time. Like, well, okay, what was 5 plus, okay, 8. Okay, 8 minutes I can go in now.
Right.
I was just going there. Everyone's like, okay, this sounds like it's too bad. I probably should go in there now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually it worked okay. Like, my son's still an okay sleeper, but, everyone here is still surviving.
Right. Well, that's kind of the important thing, right? Like, perfect is the enemy of good here. He's doing just fine. And everyone else is doing just fine too.
Exactly.
So, but prepare yourself for that to be completely thrown back into chaos with the arrival of baby number 2.
Well, and this is what something people have been telling me, which I'm starting to wrap my head around, is like, you have all these like opinions and like all these like tips and tricks that work like really well on your child. Like, none of it's going to apply to the second one. You have to get a whole new set of tips and tricks to interact with like no two kids are the same, right? Like, maybe I've taken for advantage that my son is a great eater. You give him food, he will always eat. And there's other like kids that like just like will not eat anything, right? And you have to like force it down them. So yeah, I'm trying to prepare myself. I'm like, what if I not realized that I got to skip over with the first kid? And what am I going to get to skip over that I didn't with my first kid, right?
We'll have you back in like a year and we could do a compare and contrast episode where you pit the 2 kids against each other and see which one does what better or worse. So I want to talk to you a little bit about balance. This is going to get much harder as you have a second kid and now you're equally matched between adults and children in the household. And so, you have a pretty demanding job. You work for a technology startup. You have worked at some fairly intense companies, Snowflake, Stripe, Reddit, even. Like, obviously that was before kids, but like none of these places are cakewalks, right? They're all kind of known, and startups in general are known for being intense and demanding a lot of people. You do stuff on the side. You mentioned teaching in class. You've got a social life, maybe.
Sometimes.
You probably want to get some exercise. Oh, and by the way, you have to be a good dad, right? And a good husband. How do you fit all that stuff in? What stays? What goes? What have you prioritized as you've become a dad?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the parent owes their kids the best life that they can give them. Like, I don't feel like I owe many people anything. I think for the rest of it's like, if you're good to me, then I'll be good back to you. It's kind of that kind of equal trade of value, or maybe synergistic trade of value. But like, no matter how shitty your shit is to you, I still feel like I brought you into this world. You rely on me. I owe this to you, regardless of how you treat me back. And so that's always the thing that I try and prioritize highest in my life, is making sure that like my kid's okay, and like that they have a safe environment to thrive, and kind of constructing that, safe garden for them to like to grow up in. And then everything else has to fit around that. Luckily, I have a fairly flexible job. It is a lot of hours, but it can kind of be done, on my time. And then I have a very supportive partner. And luckily, generally when she is working, that our schedules can kind of complement each other. And then I'm a pretty firm believer that, like, I don't remember where I heard this or read this, but like, it takes 3 people to raise a kid. That really 2 people don't have enough time and energy. I would say don't have enough time, because obviously there's single parents out there that kill it, right? So I'm certainly not saying that, but in order for every person to feel like a whole person and have enough time to themselves, and it takes, more than just a companionship to try and do that. And so being conscientious of that, the fact that we don't live next to my parents nor my wife's parents, we make use of things like nannies, babysitters, daycare, those kind of things. Because I think whole people make better parents. Or let me rephrase that, because I just want to put it to myself. Like, me as a whole person makes for a better parent. That means if like taking care of my body, having some fun to myself, I think it's important for my son to see that like his parent is a whole person as well, that, takes care of himself, cares about his body, cares about his family, has fun, right? It's not this just like stone golem that goes to work and then comes back and, rains the manna from heaven and then goes back to his office to keep working or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's always a flex in terms of like, sometimes you have more time to yourself, sometimes you don't. Like, in addition to all that stuff I did, I also was doing my MBA for the past 2 years as well. And so trying to fit all this stuff around, plus having the additional deadlines of trying to turn papers in and stuff like that. It really took my wife picked up a lot of that slack, knowing that eventually this would end. And that I asked her, like, well, do I get a PhD now? And she's like, I will kill you. So
that's amazing.
I'm not getting a PhD, at least anytime soon.
Right.
Especially with 2 kids. But I don't know. It's something that I feel like, at least for me, I strongly try to prioritize and recognize that I'm always going to fall short of it.
Yeah. Are there any things from your pre-kids life where you've just resigned yourself that like, hey, I'm not going to do that anymore, or at least I'm going to put that on an extended pause?
Certainly one thing is that I don't get to snowboard as much as I want to anymore. That'll change once my kids can get on the hill. Certainly the leisure travel has basically all stopped, right? So that, like as we were talking about earlier, Mickey and I used to travel everywhere. We have a fairly long bucket list still of places that we've never been that we would like to go. And we just recognize that like not until our kids are old enough to value that kind of travel are we going to try and do that again. And then something else that along the same lines, we used to travel a lot just to see friends, right? Like we'd go to Minnesota or we'd meet our friends in Mexico and just like kind of like smaller trips and that kind of stuff. And we just don't prioritize that anymore. Like a lot of stuff I still manage to fit in. Like you can see here in my background, I have like my computers and stuff. Like I'll play computer games with my friends and we just do it after bedtime. And then I do prioritize like the time I take for myself out of my day is exercise. I do make sure that I do that every day because things get a lot worse. So like you get less energy, you can get less done unless you're staying on top of some of that stuff.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I was going to ask you if you had taken your son to the ski slopes or the snowboarding slopes yet, but it sounds like maybe not quite old enough for it. Coming soon?
Yeah, 3 years old. Like if you're a hardcore skier, snowboarder, which I'm not, people will try at 3 years old and get it done, but 4-year-old's a lot safer timed. And so like we bought my son an Icon pass next year so that he can come with us to like when we go to Tahoe or Sun Valley or Utah or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we started my daughter when she was about 4 or 4.5. So as soon as they say, like, as soon as you can fit into the ski boots is when they're old enough to do it. And then it's just a matter of whether you as a parent are ready.
Yeah. To handle not. Like all the falling over and the tears and the hot chocolate. Like, yeah, all the above.
I'm pretty much always ready for the hot chocolate, but I don't know about the falling over and the tears.
There might be a little Baileys in it as well, but you just got to make sure that you get the right hot chocolate to the right kid.
Right, right. Do you have a favorite book that you like to read to your son, or does he have a favorite book?
My son loves to know the name of everyone. And so we picked up some like Star Wars books just that were for fun. But he asked me every single page, he's like, who is this character? I want to know this character's name. And it's like some obscure like character from like, Phantom Menace or something like that.
Right.
So I now know all of the Jedi councils. I know all of the different races. I will tell you that a huge blessing in my life has been ChatGPT, because you can just take a picture as like, who is this? Right. And ChatGPT will normally figure it out and get it right.
Wow.
And so like my son says all the time, I was like, get your phone. I want to know who this is. It's like, okay, this is Kit Fisto, who is this Jedi Master from episode 2 that's on screen for 30 seconds. But yeah, he does have a name.
That's amazing. All right. Myriad of Star Wars books is the answer.
There's like Darth Vader and Son. There's like the ABCs of Star Wars. There's Star Wars Colors. There's all sorts of like my first Star Wars books that he just loves.
Okay, cool. I love that. Now, I wanted to check on this one because you mentioned you lose the majority of the arguments in the house, which that's totally fine. Welcome to the club. I know that partnership is super important when you have kids. You just mentioned, hey, it takes like 3 adults to raise a kid. But it's also really hard to see eye to eye and be on the same page with your spouse 100% of the time. So is there an area where you and your wife have differing opinions on stuff with your kid?
That's a good question. Like for people that just like hop in right away and like don't have like a really stable partnership underneath them when they have kids, it just exacerbates all of the problems because you have less time to talk about it. You're more sleep deprived. The stakes are higher, right? Because now little humans are involved in all these things.
Yeah.
My wife and I had the blessing of being, I don't know, married 10 years ish. I don't know, math is hard at this point. So we had kind of already worked out like our ways of like tolerating tension in our relationship so that it was always like whatever the one person says, the other person just backs them up. And then we talk about it later if that's exactly what we wanted to do, just so that kids see this like consistency and, respect for, one parent has for the other. In terms of just like, do we have any big disagreements? My wife and I are both fairly relaxed people. So for the most part, we don't pick fights unless we feel really strongly about them. And we're generally kind of on the same page with a lot of things. Either I don't care or we agree enough on things that we're fine to compromise on things. I don't remember a place where we've really strongly differed on how to raise the kids. Yeah, I mean, I guess we differ a tiny bit on like the usage of timeouts. Tons of research either way that it's like either, healthy for kids as like a punishment, or other kids are like, you're murdering your kids if you put them in timeout. I really haven't figured it out yet.
Don't go on the internet to find the answer to this question.
Exactly. Yeah. And what we've eventually come to is like, we use them occasionally because it's like, sometimes you just don't know what else. Like something needs to happen, something needs to change, and you don't know exactly what it is. So it's like, yeah, well, cool. We're going to do like 1 minute timeout and figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of parents swear by that book, 1, 2, 3 Magic, which involves at the end, when you get to the 3, the magic is some sort of a timeout or just kind of like breaks the situation, and stops you from perpetuating whatever conflict or power struggle may be going on. So
I've not read it, but like I do that. I probably picked it up from another parent that I saw that it was affected. I just go, 1, 2, 3. And usually in the third, like when I was like, okay. And once I say 3, he just like, okay, no, I'll do whatever you want. Just on. I was like, I don't love this behavior, but you stopped. So what am I going to do?
That's right. That's right. You have built an entire career in technology. You start off as an engineer, you're a product person now, leading product teams. You mentioned using ChatGPT and taking pictures of your son's Star Wars book, which that's genius, by the way. Like if that existed when my kids had questions about that, I would have saved myself an infinite number of hours.
Yep. I love it.
But when you think about, your son's still really young and your next kid is not even here yet, is about to be here. When you think about the relationship that you want your kids to have with technology, the thing that you built your whole career on, how do you think about how that might be different or the same to your relationship with it?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question because I did not have restricted screen time as a kid, for good or for worse. But like I had a Game Boy as a kid. We were in Montana. My brother played varsity sports. And so we were driving all over Montana. So I was regularly on car trips that were 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, just because that's how things are close to each other in Montana, right?
Sure.
And so I had a Game Boy, and then eventually I had my dad built like a little Nintendo 64 thing for me in the backseat of our car, and I would play that. And my parents just acknowledged, like, this is the way that we're bringing a kid with us that's not going to freak out. So I don't really see, at least, I mean, obviously I'm talking about myself, but I don't really see too much downfall in the way that my parents treated technology and me. And like on the flip side of it, like I learned how to code at a really young age because I needed to for some of the things that I wanted to do. And it gave me a very intuitive sense of how a computer works. And my dad worked for IBM. That's probably bears mentioning as well. So I grew up around computers. But on the flip side of this is like, I never thought I would find myself in this position, but like, I'll just call it like the iPad kid effect. That like you give a kid an iPad and it's just like zombie mode, right? Like there's just nothing going on between the eyes because they're not really interacting with it. They're just being like fed this like rapid loop of nothing, right? Like of engaging, visually stimulating nothing. And so I'm finding myself in this weird position where it's like, I don't want to be the regulator of screen time and all that kind of stuff, but I find myself like, you need to be. You actively have to fight it or it comes for you. And so I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what that balance is. I still don't really honestly have a good answer to it. We just decided like, we're not going to give our kid an iPad in the house. If he wants to watch like screen time or anything like that, there's a big screen. You can watch it on the TV. and there's some limits to it. And then we'll try and balance like playing with stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't know, we're still trying to figure out exactly what that is. As far as like AI and all that kind of stuff as well, like new worlds, right? Like I'm trying to figure out what it is for my job, let alone how to raise a kid with all this stuff in the world. The only thing that I know is that what I feel and what I know about it is going to be wrong, and it's going to be different. And it's going to be on me. It's like, do you want to be this stodgy old person that just says like, no, back in my day, we, had, cursive and penmanship and that kind of stuff. Or are you just going to say like, look, let's learn together. Let's try and figure out what this new world shapes out to be. And let's try and equip you with the skills that this new world requires to be successful.
Yeah. I think that's a really balanced and great perspective to have. And like you just said, the only constant here is change and uncertainty. And so you kind of just got to figure out how to navigate it as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I used to program like the quadratic equation into my graphing calculator so that I could like cheat on my math test by having the quadratic. And I could have figured it out. I actually spent way more time learning about the quadratic equation so that I could, generalize it into a program. And so like at the end, definitely I could have done it way faster by hand at that point. But these kids now, then like they have like, smartphones and like the ability to Google things on the fly. And pretty soon they're just be able to take a picture of it and say, answer all of my questions for me and never need to learn anything. And like, that's scary from one perspective. On the other hand, like maybe the utilitant of this is actually going to be even more enabled if they know how to use it correctly. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm, taking that, I guess, step by step.
Yeah. And the good news is you got a lot of time to figure it out with only a 3.5-year-old and a negative a few days year old.
Yeah, exactly.
What is a mistake that you've made as a dad?
I generally try not to like dwell or remember these kind of things. Really, I regret things when I do something that I know better, right? And like I did something and I was like, I know I should have done this other thing, but I did the other thing. And I generally try not to live my life that way. And I generally try not to regret things if I just didn't know better, right? And I was doing my best at the time. I mean, I certainly could have like planned that trip better in terms of just like, speaking of that. But honestly, I don't think I have too many regrets around raising my kid. Like I make mistakes all the time, but I'm the first person to go to my son. It's like, hey, I did this and I was wrong. And daddy's really sorry because daddy doesn't get it right all the time. And, I'm always here to listen to you. If you think that I'm doing it wrong, please tell me and we'll talk about it. Right. So I don't know. That's probably kind of a boring answer, but it's the truth.
No, but there was a real important nugget in there, which was, you make mistakes all the time. And here's how you recover from them and turn that into like a teaching opportunity with your own kid. So that's pretty amazing. I appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to come all the way back to a thing you mentioned early in our conversation, which is this idea of repressed memories. And it just sort of reminded me of that, what you were just saying. So, I always found this really funny that parents of older kids, when I would ask them like, oh, what was it like when, so-and-so junior was really little? And they're like, I can't even remember. I had no idea. Has that already happened to you? I mean, your son is not that old, but
no.
But I guess maybe we process so much information when they are young and born and we're so sleep deprived that we just forget stuff. It goes down the memory hole. So that's happening with you right now?
I've had a couple of those just moments. Like, again, I had a friend, Scott Moss, over the other day, and he has a newborn. And like, his wife had to go do something, so she handed me the baby, and I just like picked this kid up. Reed's pretty big. He's 3.5, but he's like 42 pounds. He's a solid. Yes.
Yeah.
Solid chunk of human. And I picked up Iverson, Scott's kid, and I was like, I forgot how light these are, right? Like, it was just like a really weird moment for he's like, I'm about to do this again. I'm about to have something so light and tiny, it like feels fragile, right? Whereas like Reed, you could chuck him, he'd be fine, right? Like the kid just bounced off everything. And it's just tons of, like when I was setting up the snoo and like looking, I was like, oh my God, I forgot what this, like putting all the things in and like pressing the button and like all the sound machines and all that kind of stuff. It's like, and then when I picked up like the newborn diapers, like I was like, I forgot how small these are. And it's just like thing after this, like, it's like I'm a frog that's been boiling for 3.5 years. I just forgot what cool water felt like, right?
Oh, that is an amazing analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all going to come flooding back.
Very quickly.
Yeah. But I suppose, and maybe it's helpful that we forget all these things because as you also mentioned, like each kid is very different from one another. So like if you're expecting it to be identical to what Reed was like as a baby, you're actually in for a pretty rude awakening. So maybe there's some genetic reason that we forget these things. Who knows?
I'm sure. There's a bunch of stuff that you don't want to take old bad habits into your next kid, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. What's a way that you recharge yourself or center yourself with the chaos of parenthood and professional life?
A couple of ways. I mean, certainly one of them is that I try and sweat for at least 30 minutes every day, whatever that is. I was running when I was in Minnesota. I have a Peloton here and I just, put on my basic man's kind of hat and ride Peloton. So just getting out of that, like where you're exercising. The only thing that you can do right then is just think about is like, wow, I'm really tired. And I think that's super helpful. Yoga is another good one that I used to do as well. I haven't done that as much lately, but just make your body suffer a little bit. It'll allow you to kind of space to kind of clear out and then you can come back to things with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Something else is just like when you have this like moments of awe, like which I didn't really understand until I was a parent where like I remember, I don't know why this is such a clear memory for me, but like I remember when my kid came home from his first 2 weeks of daycare and he told me something that I didn't know. He's like, hey, this happened at school. And I had this moment, I was like, that's crazy that he finally has told me something that I didn't know before, right? Like before we'd had conversations, he's like, hey, Dad, I ate this. I was like, yeah, no kid, I watched you eat that, right? But like, I try and take like those moments of awe and just like really just like give him a moment, like give him some space to like really just kind of settle in there. And it really recharges you, for me as a parent anyway, to just like recognize that like you're along for this journey. Like these stories make sense to nobody else, right? Like where he's like, hey, my kid told me something that I didn't know. My child's friends are like, okay, like why do I care? It's the dumbest story, right? It makes no sense to anyone but you, but just embracing it, leaning into it, being like the dumb parent that takes way too much pride and like is way too invested in your kid, just living it and loving it, right? And like doing nothing for the gram and doing everything for like just yourself, right?
Yeah.
That really helps me a lot as well. And then just, again, trying to be a whole person, have hobbies, even if you don't really get to them all the time, still keep interest and passion in things outside of your kids, your spouse, your work, your side hustles, school. Find time to do, for me, I try and cycle where I can. I try and snowboard where I can, go to sports matches, have a good beer, some of those things. Try and even if like it's got to shrink, right? It's the first thing to go when you have, time constraints, but when you don't, trying to fit them back in. Otherwise, like you just sit on your phone and doom scroll. That's actually probably a good thing to mention as well. Is like I try and not be on my phone when I'm just sitting there by myself.
Yeah.
Because that will just eat all of your free time and you'll end up doing absolutely nothing.
Oh, I love that piece of advice. Thank you for sharing it. You mentioned sports. I would be remiss if I did not call out that the former Oakland A's are now the Sacramento A's.
Yep.
Have you taken your son or are you planning on taking your son to a baseball game this summer?
Absolutely. I'm really excited. They should be here for at least 3, at most 4 years. I have a hard rule because I actually don't care at all about baseball, but I have a hard rule that my favorite team is the one that I live closest to.
Oh, okay.
So I'm right at this moment in time, I am an A's fan, and in about 3 or 4 years, I will be a Giants fan again.
There you go. I love that.
So yeah, absolutely. We'll take him to some games. We'll take him to some Kings games. I have tons of fond memories with my dad going to Utah Jazz games. Still a huge Utah Jazz fan. I love events. I love spectacle. All the kind. We've taken my son already to a couple of like kid-oriented concerts. We went to like the Paw Patrol show and some of the other things, and
cool.
Just getting him out and having cool experiences.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, Brian, before we get to lightning round, how can people follow along or be helpful to you in any way?
I occasionally get on Twitter or Blue Sky or LinkedIn. Those are really the only 3 that I check these days. in general, I try and disconnect. I'm off all Facebook properties actually specifically for that reason now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just if I'm at an event or if you find yourself in Sacramento, a cup of coffee or a beer is always a welcomed inquiry.
All right. Well, we will point people to Twitter, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn in case they want to socially, professionally connect with you
Sounds
in
good.
some way. All right. Well, are you ready for lightning round?
Strike me with lightning. I'm ready.
Okay. I think some of these we may have uncovered in the show, but we will see if the answer is the same now during the lightning round. Here we go. What is the most indispensable parenting product that you have ever purchased?
Unfortunately, it probably is that snoo, and I really wish that wasn't the case. But like, it made such a major difference in the early sleeping arena that I unfortunately have to say that.
Okay, well, let me actually challenge you on this. Is it the snoo or is it the magnetic clasp clothing?
Oh yeah, I mean, being able to change, like if like your kid has like a very smelly thing to deal with, being able to like rip it off and just throw another on and every other class just kind of come together, it's quite nice.
Okay, all right. Well, top two. We'll say that's a top two. But what is the most useless parenting product that you've ever purchased?
The Owlet, do you remember that one?
Oh.
It's like smart sock that you could put on a kid and it would tell you if they were dying. And fun fact, they are always dying. It was just false alarm after false alarm of like, oh my God, your kid stopped breathing. You go in there and your kid's fine, right? It was just anxiety as a service is really what this product was.
You've coined a new piece of software, anxiety as a service. Oh my God.
Terrible. Want nothing to do with that.
Amazingly, a sock doesn't actually tell you if your kid is breathing or not. It's a shocker.
Yeah. Who could have guessed?
What is the weirdest thing that you've ever found in one of Reed's pockets or in the washing machine?
Oh man, the list is long there. Certainly one AirPod was surprising and not fun one to pull out of the laundry.
Oh no.
And even more fun fact is I don't think it was ours. Because I have all of my AirPods, right? So that's probably what it is.
Okay. Someone else's AirPod in the washing machine.
Yep.
Amazing. True or false? There is only one correct way to load the dishwasher.
I would say false. I saw a meme that basically said that there's two types of people in this world. Like one is like a Danish hig designer when they put in like everything and has like its perfect place, or a rabid raccoon and there's nothing in the middle. And I am definitely the rabid raccoon. Is like, if it fits, it sits, right? If it goes in there, we're doing it, we're turning it on, and I might have to run it twice, but that's fine.
Yeah. I have always the best intentions in loading the dishwasher, and then eventually it just goes to chaos. So yeah. What is your signature dad's superpower?
I don't want to call myself the disciplinarian, but I'm usually the one that can come in and make some order out of the chaos.
Okay.
So I get brought in when like everyone's both, wife and child are unhappy about something. And I was like, okay, what do we need right now so that we can stop with this, pouting session and go forth. So it's probably just bringing things down a couple of notches.
You're the mediator of all problems, the master
I'm the hostage negotiator is probably closer.
Okay. What is the crazier block of time in your house? 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
Oh, it's the latter for sure. Before bedtime. That's when peak negotiating lead comes out. And he's like, well, if I do this, then I can do this. And I was like, no, buddy, that doesn't math. But those numbers don't add up. He's like, but if you watch 2 more episodes of Barney and I have 1 more chocolate milk, then I can go to bed. And I was like, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but no, none of those things work.
That's amazing. The ideal day with your son involves which one activity?
Eventually, that answer will be snowboarding. We're not quite there yet. What do I really enjoy doing with Reed? He's really fun to get out and like take him to the park or take him to like one of those like, big kid gyms where they just climb around and have a great time, because he just runs around and just like a banshee. And it's just really fun to watch him just at his like peak of enjoyment and realize like, man, I wish I could be that happy right now. I wish that all of my cares could just flow away and I could just like climb that up and just like, it's like Everest, right?
Yeah. If Reed had to describe you in one word, what would that be?
The dad of me wants to say dad, right? Just go for the full-on dad joke. I hope that he says kind or loving or fair, like one of those. I'm sure sometimes he says just asshole or something like that, which probably also fits the bill. So
Yeah.
if he said those like 4 words, then I think I'd feel pretty okay.
Okay, good. What is the most frustrating thing that has ever happened to you as a dad?
I get really frustrated when like I'll set something up or like we'll get him a toy or something like that, and then he's just pissed about it. That gets really frustrating really quickly. It's like, hey, like we got you this like really cool toy, or I don't know. I remember I was traveling for work and I brought something back. I think it was like a green dinosaur, and he had seen the other version of the same dinosaur. Like, I want to do a dinosaur. Like, I don't care about it because this is the one that I had, and this one, the other one's, in Seattle, and I can't go get it for you right now. I don't know. Like, it kind of brings out like they're kind of being a brat, and like I don't want to raise a brat. I think that every kid has just some brat tendencies in them, so you just kind of have to kind of prune those as they come up.
On the opposite side, what is the funniest thing that your kid has ever said in public?
Oh man, my wife has like a journal of these, and so maybe I'll have to message you some of the funny ones later. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I'm blanking on this one.
That's all right. I love that your wife has a journal of these, by the way. This is pretty amazing. Yeah.
I mean, we're not journaling people, but she does it for certain things. She does like try and keep like track of like all the funny things that he does say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll follow up on that one. We'll include it in the show notes or something. How many dad jokes do you tell on average in a given day?
I try and get my wife to roll her eyes at least once a day.
Do you have a favorite?
I think the best dad jokes are the spontaneous ones where like you're pointing out, like I did just a couple of moments there. So I don't gravitate towards like the obvious like knock knock jokes or something like that. It's more like, hi dad, I'm hungry. It's like, hi, hungry, I'm dad, right?
Yep. Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah,
classic of the genre. What is the most absurd thing that your son has ever asked you to buy for him?
He's asked me several times to buy him a car. And I was like, I have to point out, I was like, we got a bigger car when we moved to California for the second kid. And he's like, okay, dad, can you buy me a blue car? And I was like, I mean, no, that's not really how this works. It's like, but you got a silver car, I get a blue car. Again, buddy, that's not really how this works.
That's amazing. It's got to be a blue car, just like the red dinosaur.
He's obsessed with what the colors of things are. And it's important that you have to get it right. And the silver car was not to his liking.
Oh, I see.
No.
I understand. I understand. What is the most difficult kids' TV show that you've had to sit through?
Every day that I'm not watching Paw Patrol is a blessed day. It's a victory. That's the one that he latched onto that I liked the least. I've been warned away from several TV shows, like the one with the bald kid. I can't remember what his name is.
Caillou.
I've heard it's like that kid will ruin your kid's behavior. So we get 0% of that in this house.
Yes.
So yeah, Paw Patrol is just mindless. Like it's fine. There's nothing really truly harmful about it.
Right.
I guess the other thing that actually more than anything is just like putting your kid on like unfiltered YouTube Kids and just watching all the stuff that they click through. That's the worst. That's the stuff that actually like, I think this might be actually harmful for his like attention span.
Yeah.
I don't turn off Paw Patrol. If he wants to watch it, by all means, we can watch an episode here or there. But with like the YouTube Kids thing is like, you get like 5 minutes of crack and then we are done. That is all the crack you get today.
On the flip side, what is your favorite kids movie?
Kids movie. I mean, it's really fun that like Reed's finally old enough to like be interested in the properties that I was interested in and still am interested in. So like Star Wars has always been like one that I liked as a kid. He liked Sonic the Hedgehog a lot. Like I loved Sonic as a kid, or Super Mario. He liked that one for a while.
Yeah.
So actually probably the one that we watched the most together that we both liked would be the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Okay. Great film. Great film. What is the worst experience you've ever had assembling a children's toy or a piece of furniture?
Generally, I'm smart enough to these days to not buy IKEA furniture because I just know what a problem is, or I just get a TaskRabbit to do it for me these days. Oh, what was the one that we put together where I was just like cursing? It was some like Batman large scale like Bat Cave thing that had like 400 pieces to it and it was all flat pack. And I was like, why did I order this? Who thought this was a good idea? Who hates parents this much, right?
Oh, that's amazing. Always the flat pack like houses or kitchens or whatever. What nostalgic movie can you just not wait to force your son to watch with you?
It's probably Tron Legacy. It's a terrible movie in terms of like there's no plot of worth any sort of description, but I just love the soundtrack and like the aesthetic and the vibe of it.
Okay.
And I watched it a ton as like I don't know, whenever it came out. I was probably 18 when that movie came out. But I certainly like the old like 80s comedies as well. Like, or I guess they'd probably be early 90s, like Tommy Boy and Happy Gilmore and like all those stupid Adam Sandler movies. I'm looking forward to the days when he enjoys the fart jokes as much as I do.
The good news for you is that they're making a sequel to Happy Gilmore, from what I understand.
I have, having worked at Netflix during the time where we signed those Netflix contracts, I have no faith that they're going to be any good.
I'd say they probably weren't good at the time, but we loved them. So.
Yeah.
2 last ones. Do you have a favorite dad hack for road trips or flights?
Oh, man. Like, I remember when Reed was young enough, because Reed is flown enough that I think he's almost gold medallion.
Whoa.
On Delta. So he's certainly silver. So you run the nap schedule so that they sleep on the flight. That was always a successful hack for us. And now that he's old enough, we only let him have iPad, and like mostly unfiltered iPad time, either in restaurants when we're eating or on flights. That's it. So that's been successful. He also really likes when you bring like the vinyl stickers that stick on glass and you let him like put it on the airplane window. I think my wife got that off of Instagram or some terrible source of parenting hacks, right? The other one is that you go to the dollar store and you get like 5 really cheap toys and you just kind of pull them out one by one. Once they finally get bored of the stupid toys, then you just get rid of all of them at the end.
Progressive reveal, progressive discovery, something
That's
like
it.
that.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, last question for you. Save the best for last. You were one of 4 kids, but you only currently have 1 kid. You said you just got a new car. What is your take on minivans?
I used to be like every, red-blooded young American male, like, no, absolutely not, right? And man, now I'm just like, anything that makes moving kids around that much easier, hell yeah, I'm super into it. Like, I drove my sister's minivan. I don't have one yet, but I drove my sister's minivan by happenstance. And there's a thing in it that I like to call the voice of God mode, where there's like a little microphone just like, knock it off. And like, it just like rings it out throughout the entire car because you're like, oh my God, what's it? Right. I'm super into that. Like that kind of stuff like really appeals to me. So like, I have no judgment for anyone that chooses to drive a minivan. If there was like an EV minivan, I would have strongly considered it.
All right. Well, I didn't know 2 things on that. I didn't know about that voice of God mode, but that sounds really nice.
Yeah.
And 2, if you do get a minivan, make sure it's a blue one.
Absolutely. Otherwise my son will outright reject it.
That's right. And with that, Brian, thank you so much for joining me on Startup Dad today. It was a pleasure having you and learning about you and your fam. And best of luck with the new pending bundle of joy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to today's conversation with Brian Holt. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, share, and leave me a review on Apple or Spotify. It'll help other people find this podcast. Startup Dad has a YouTube channel. You can find it by searching Startup Dad Pod on YouTube. If you're a startup founder, leader, or just want to get better at your job in tech as a growth practitioner, product manager, or executive, you can join a community of 12,000 subscribers and stay up to date on my thoughts on growth, product, and parenting by subscribing to the Fishman AF newsletter at www.fishmanafnewsletter.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.